Hey guys, Art131 here, and we're in midweek on week one, the first week of the fall term. So, I'm going to talk about assignment number two, which is Shoe from Memory and Shoe from Life. And also the homework, which is Drawing of Choice. Okay, so all these are separate. Assignment one, two, and homework. As we go through the week, they're all separate assignments. Okay, and it's a good practice to go to the syllabus on the left sidebar and open that up. Also, in that page, on that page is this weekly schedule that I provided. So you can print it out and have it handy and keep track of the assignments you're doing, what was completed, what I asked you to do more on, and you should work on and send back to me. Like I mentioned before, if I don't ask you to do any more work to it, you've gotten a good grade on it. I would say an A or a B. If you want to know what your grade was, let me know, and I'll let you know what that is. And I'm going to be heads upping you on all that as we go. So when it comes around the midterm area, week 5 or so, I'll be letting you know what you're missing and what you're not missing, and where your grade is at the moment, and all that. Okay, so we're going to talk about assignment number two, which is a shoe from memory and life. So that's two separate drawings, but you can actually do them on the same page if you want to save, space and paper and whatnot. You can put the shoe from memory at the top and the shoe from life at the bottom and have them both there. So, of course, when you're doing a shoe from memory, we're talking about maybe a shoe from imagination, or one that you are thinking of, shoe, boot, anything that works as a foot covering that isn't a sock. Well, let me specify that. It probably should be a shoe. Sandals can be kind of minimal, but I'll give that a try. And boots, of course, and shoes of all sorts will work. So, even a wooden shoe. I would like you to watch the videos that I posted before this one. I'm going to provide this one as well shortly, but at first I have 4 courses, 2 face-to-face, where I have to travel for, and then also 2 online. So it's been rather difficult, but we're going to get through this. So this is the first video. I will make a video like this every week, two of them, with an introduction to the assignment, and then other videos that have introduction and demonstration. Okay. We will continue on here, and I will show you some images of shoes. Now that you have watched the other videos about shading and holding the pencil for shading, because there's different ways to hold the pencil to get the side of the pencil. That's how you shade. You're not going to shade with the tip all that much because it makes kind of scratchy texture. The side of the pencil gets a smooth, broader shading uh, area accomplished, and so you can blend a little bit better. And also smudgers work really good to smudge around and smooth out the graphite. Smudgers can be found at art stores. They're like pencils that are made out of cardboard and have a hard cardboard sort of paper tip, and you smudge around. But you can use a Q-tip. You can actually use your finger, or a cloth over your finger and smudge around. Whichever way, Q-tips work really good too, and they smudge the graphite dust, or if you will, and it kind of blends it. Because now and then you're going to want to get a gradual shading tones from one place to the other. It's not all one sudden shading meets the other sometimes. Sometimes it's a gradual change from light to dark or dark to light. And then you want the smudger to kind of help you do that. And you can get, of course, it also showed you that when you're shading, you get dark tones by pressing hard on the pencil, and when you want light tones, you don't press very hard. So the pressure of your hand on that graphite pencil uh, renders the tones. Okay, and if you want to use charcoal pencils, it's the same thing. They tend to put more charcoal down quicker, so it's actually a quicker way to draw when you're trying to get a bunch of contrast in tones. But see what works for you. You can use both if you want. The charcoal, you need a kneaded eraser. It's not the white eraser. The vinyl eraser won't work very well with charcoal. You need the kneaded eraser. It's one that you actually pull apart and ball up and use it that way. Any of these terms, anything you're wondering about, you can go to YouTube and put it in, and there'll probably be a video on it. Okay, that's what I do. I mean, I go to YouTube and I get videos on everything I want. Rather than me doing them, I find that it's better to have various artists and different takes on things. It's more diverse. It's not just my take on everything. So that's why I do it. So you can do it too. You can look up many things and get even more input on anything I'm talking about. So let's talk about the shoes. We're not coloring this shoe, so look at the difference between this shoe and that shoe. This shoe is just an outline of a shoe with no shading, and this one has all the shading, right? The one with the shading is a stronger drawing. It has a three-dimensional appearance because of the shading, because the shading is showing the light source, which shines down on the shoe, showing you the light and dark areas that are created by its shape. It's because that shoe is shaped like this, it catches the light the way it does. And then when it catches the light the way it does, there's light and dark areas. Well, when you get all that shaded, the mind picks up on it because we're used to seeing certain things with light source on them, and that's how we determine the shape of them without going up and touching them. So when something's rounded, it has a gradual tone change sometimes and a reflection mark on it. When it's rippled back here and folded, there's dark and light areas. And so your mind, with even not touching that, goes, wow, that's kind of wrinkled and rough back there, when this is kind of smooth right here. And it's all because of your shading techniques that are telling your viewer what the texture is and what the shape is of everything you're drawing. So we're just picking shoes. If you're doing a shoe like this and you didn't shade it, we don't really know how round it is or what the shape is or what the side textures are. It's really in putting in the shading marks that tell you that. Also, cast shadow on the table tell you again where the light source is going. That's why the shoe is darker on this side than this side, and the cast shadow is kind of underneath. The light's coming from this direction. There's a shadow from the shoelace right there on the shoe, and on this one too, it's laying closer to the shoe, but there's that shadow. So this all tells your viewer what you're trying to tell them, what the shoe actually looks like in a three-dimensional form when you're drawing it on your two-dimensional paper. And you need all this contrast and lights and darks to be able to show the shape of the shoe and where it turns and where it's ripply and where it's kind of got wrinkles in it and whatnot. Okay? So that's what you want to think about when you're doing the shoe from life is going to be right in front of you. That shoe from life assignment, part of this assignment, you're putting a shoe up on a table in front of you with a single light source. I say single light source because, just like in the shading, that gives you the best contrast. If it's multiple lights on the subject, you're not going to see any shadow areas. And if you don't see the shadow areas and you don't represent that in your drawing, you're not showing the shape very well. And it's very difficult actually to show the shape of the shoe without shadowy areas and lighted up areas. Okay? So I'll say that all day long. And all term, I'm really into shading and I'm really into contrast because that really builds the strongest drawing. Okay? This is not a very strong drawing at all. It's a nice drawing of a shoe that has no shading. It has no shape. Okay, so this is what I want you to notice out of what I'm showing you here. And you're going, maybe you're wondering, well, how do you get those reflection marks? You just erase them out if you put tone there. Maybe you didn't put any tone there and you with less pressure, went up to it and just dissipated it into nothing. And so that's as white as paper there because you just left it alone. And the rest of it you shaded. And now, pretty soon your mind starts picking up on this. This is very shiny here. When with the graphite, all you did was leave it alone right there and kind of shade up to it and then let it dissipate. Very, very less pressure, very thin amount of graphite you're actually putting down, and a lot more with the dark areas. And then all these little imperfections where the stitches are. Okay, those are all light and dark areas, light and dark areas, light and dark, all back and forth. And very few lines. Okay, this is all, most of the shoe has no lines on it. It doesn't even have a border line. So, if you sketch out your shoe, do it lightly, like the gesture drawing video showed you. The gesture drawing is to show you how to lightly get your proportions and where your placement is of everything. And then you start putting in the detail with the shading and maybe a little bit of lines in the shoelace right here. It's got some scratchy little lines right there, but there's no border line around the shoe. There's like a little bit of a line right there. Okay, I'll take that back, but not the whole shoe, right? It's just where the shading ended and the background started, and that's it. And that's where the edge of the shoe is. You don't need a line. And more things than not, when you're drawing, you're going to notice there are no lines in it. It's mostly just shading, one shade that meets up with another shade or ends somewhere, and that's where your edges are and where things are become different. And there's no real lines. It's just shading marks that end and meet up with another shading mark. This is a broad line right here. That's kind of a shading line, really, in my opinion. And here's a little bit of a line here because it was dark, a dark fold right there. I'm talking about border lines to everything. Like if all this had a border line around it, that wouldn't be accurate. Okay, so when you're drawing your shoe from memory and you're not looking at one, then you need to have all this shading knowledge in your mind. So you shade the shoe that you're actually drawing from your memory or your imagination. And you gotta start thinking that way. If you haven't already, and some of you are new at this, then you're going to start thinking about shading in everything you see. Where are the light and darks that show the shape and show the light source? Because that's going to make the shoe have shape. You'll see it in the shoe of life when it's in front of you with a single light source, whether that's the window light coming in, which is going to have reflected light from around the room too, because it reflects off the wall on the opposite side of the room. So there's a little bit of that going on, but mostly you have a strong one single light source coming from one direction or another. And, if you're drawing at night or there's no windows, then you do have to have a lamp, but set it on one side or the other so it's not like right in front of the subject. This will create more shadowy areas, and that's going to get you the shape you want. Also, place it where it is, on a table or something, ground it so it's not just floating in the air. You want your shoe to actually, both of them, you want your shoe to be somewhere, grounded somewhere, right? Like it's really in life. It's not just floating around in the air somewhere. Okay, so we'll go back to the homework, and that's a drawing of choice. Well, you can draw whatever you want, but keep in mind everything you've learned about shading and placement and proportion, and keep all that in mind. Whatever you draw should have some sort of background to it. It should be placed somewhere. It shouldn't be floating in the air, just like floating in an abyss, whatever you're drawing. You want it to be somewhere. You want to create strong drawings, not just, oh, you wanted me to draw this? Okay, here it is. A ball floating in the air. No, I want the ball on the table. I want the cow's shadow. I want a little bit of a background. Whatever you're deciding to draw. I'm not saying you have to draw a ball, but whatever it is, kind of smudge in and go to Bing or Google like I do. I just went to Bing, right? This is Bing. I go to Bing Images or I go to Google Images, which I don't really prefer. I like Bing. So go to Bing or Google, it's up to you, and look this up and get some ideas about what you're going to draw for your drawing of choice. Whatever it is. I'm going to draw a puppy, so go get some ideas. And put in drawings. Don't just put puppy because it'll show you photographs. So you want to put puppy drawings or whatever whatever it is you're going to draw. And you want to have, still life is good for drawing a choice. So you set up a bunch of items in front of you on a table with a single light source, and you start drawing it. Okay? Like I said, charcoal pencils work really well for rendering dark tones and a lot of tones really quickly, but you need the kneaded eraser with that. All right, so I'll leave it at that. Drawing a choice is the homework. Watch the video several times if you want, and ask questions as many times as you need to. I don't mind. I'll try to be patient. No, I'm kidding. But, if you have to ask something several times because you didn't get it, don't worry about it. I did the same thing in school. I was the worst. Okay, so I drove my teachers crazy. So that's why I'm pretty lenient with that one. All right. So we'll talk with you later and have a good weekend. And we'll, like I say, get these done this week and send them to me next week. That's the way to keep up. But if you're late on something, I'll still grade it and I'll still help you. And you can still do work to any assignment throughout the course to get a better grade. All right. So there's every chance of getting a really good grade in here if you keep working. All right. We'll talk with you later.